Well, hello. This is Wade Frazier. This is March 25th, 2026, 2:38 p.m. This post is going to be a succinct outline of my plan to bring free energy to humanity. This would be the biggest event in the human journey. Last year at Substack, I made a series of posts on the paths of failure in the pursuit of free energy, which I have long written about. Um, and Make no mistake, the technologies that I'm referring to, free energy, anti-gravity, all sorts of exotic technologies at Star Trek level technologies. These technologies they've been on the earth longer than I have been on the earth. This is something that there's lots of tabloid conspiracism on this topic, but I lived through this stuff, and it's a thing where, and my fellow travelers have, and so yeah, this. If you've been in the field for long, you know this stuff's real. It's not some wild imaginings. This is real stuff. um, and I think if a comprehensive discussion of the issues was ever really mounted successfully, it would attract the people who will form the nucleus for a successful effort. In a nutshell, that's what I'm doing. And so I've been creating for the past 30 years. I've been creating material that I think is worthy of the people that I seek to form the basis for a discussion to help people achieve comprehensive perspectives. And once they do, I think it'll be obvious how to make this happen. The shorthand I've used for the people I seek, I've called them disillusioned idealists. I'm one. Most of my fellow travelers were my heroes. They're all disillusioned idealists. Um, I wrote recently, posted on Ralph McGehee, classic disillusioned idealist at the CIA. Those people that I seek, they need to have two critical qualities, and these qualities they're necessary for anybody who's going to be involved in what I'm attempting. And the first one is they cared. They cared for something about their immediate self-interest. They cared about the world. They cared about other people. They cared about making the world a better place. And the second quality was they awakened past their indoctrination and conditioning, which all humans are subjected to. So we are all conditioned and indoctrinated into basically in-group ideologies. And this goes back to social animals. And, so this is instead of grooming as chimps do, we have other ways of, conversation, et cetera, to help condition people to support their societies so they can compete against neighboring societies in the battle for survival. And those two traits, I can't help anybody achieve those two traits. People care, they don't. That's innate. I think it's there when you're born. It's there in your soul. The other comes through experience. Yeah, people can only awaken through experience. And again, and the way they awaken is they realize that they were conditioned and indoctrinated. That's what it's about. Just realizing that you were. That's huge, which very few people will ever admit to themselves. That they're all brainwashed. We've all been brainwashed. Brian O'Leary, my former colleague, my dear departed Brian, he thought that the people that were going to make it happen had to be mystically awakened, or he called them consciousness researchers, is what he also said. But basically, they've had back to experience. It only comes to experience. So they've had paranormal experiences that set them on a trail of discovery, of understanding, of achieving. And again, I think it's all part of developing a comprehensive perspective. Yeah, materialist perspectives won't get us, they don't work. And Brian my jury was kind of out for a long time whether materialists could do something like this, and Brian thought they couldn't. Brian thought their awareness was too stunted by their religion. Yeah, materialism is really a religion, and so Brian thought that people had to have paranormal experiences. I call it mystical awakenings, whatever you want to call that, but it's an opening up of our consciousness in ways that not many of us achieve. And all again, it comes through experience. It doesn't come through teachers or literature reviews. It has to be through experience. And so for what I'm doing, so-called intelligence, that's way behind those. So intelligence isn't that important for what I'm doing. Although to develop a comprehensive perspective, it requires people to become scientifically literate. And that's a key part of developing a comprehensive perspective, and that takes work. That definitely takes some work. But people do not need to be professional scientists to do that. Popularized science is plenty. That's what I use in my work. Most of what I use in my work is popularized science. People don't have to know calculus, or be physicists, this kind of stuff, to really understand what I think needs to be understood for an effort like mine to succeed. And again, I present examples. Again, my former partner, Dennis Lee, he sold the world's best heating system. And I presented a lesson on the physics behind it and the data. And so I've presented the physics behind the world's best heating system and why it is. And it's really not a heavy intellectual lift. It's really not that difficult to understand. I said, I studied, I wrote about it recently, where I studied thermodynamics out of a Thermodynamics for Poets book, and it was enough. It was enough to get the gist of thermodynamics. Yeah, people don't need to, again, they don't need to be professional scientists to understand this stuff. It's really not, to me, I don't think it's that hard to understand this. It's not a big intellectual lift to understand, again, why Dennis had the world's best heating system in many subjects. And my work in general, it doesn't really require much more than that. I mean, it's not, I don't consider it to be a heavy intellectual lift. Yeah, it's not quantum physics. And that comprehensive perspective, which is kind of be the meat of this post, I'm going to go through a brief coverage of the primary concepts underlying the comprehensive perspective that I think is needed. Number one, our universe is nothing but energy. In Big Bang cosmology and orthodox physics, E equals mc squared, all this kind of stuff. I mean, energy is all our universe consists of. Yeah, matter is a condensed form of energy, so it's all energy. So our universe is all energy. And life on Earth, and I've discussed this at length. These are all topics that I've discussed a lot, written about at great length. Life itself is a tremendous consumer of energy. And so it's like me. So my body, I consume energy 100 pound for pound. I consume energy 100,000 times as fast as the sun produces it. And that's how what a voracious consumer of energy life is. And the red of tooth and claw observation, I think first in Shakespeare, but Darwin wrote about it. The biological compulsion to survive and reproduce in a world of scarcity is the root of all violence. And so this is something and that's as succinct as I've seen it stated by an Israeli scholar. And anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, so much of what I propose. Yeah, end scarcity, you end violence. The growth of the human brain. So a human brain is 3 to 4 times the size of a chimp brain. And that was a tremendous energy process to do that, because our brains are energy hogs. Neurons are energy hogs. They never turn off. They're constantly burning energy. And our brains are only about 2% of our body mass, but consume about 20% of our metabolic energy. So growing our huge brains was a tremendous energy undertaking. And there's various theories about where that energy came from. Was it increased metabolism? Was it bipedal locomotion? And so again, these are all topics that I cover in my work, and there's lively, and there should be, there's lively scientific discussion around these topics. So exactly what produced that energy that fuels these big brains of ours, that's not decided. But what is decided is that it burns a lot of energy. And so again, my guess is a combination of increasing metabolism, uh, reduced digestive system needs, bipedal locomotion, and these are all hypotheses that have been presented to try to explain it, and it could be all the above contributes to that. In fact, I consider that likely. And then back to our big human brains, etc. So the human journey has always revolved around energy, intelligence, and tools. I boil it down. Those are the three basic dynamics of the human journey: energy, intelligence, and tools. And particularly what I call the first step of the human journey, which led to behaviorally modern humans. It was all about that energy, intelligence, and tools, and evolution. So evolution was a part of all that. And I've divided the human journey into four epochs. The fifth is what we're on the brink of. And humanity exploited one energy source after another. And the first one was these rock-wielding apes started killing off the world's easy meat. And we became, by the time Homo erectus appeared on the scene, we were apex predators. Our ancestors were apex predators. And they started driving the world's big animals to extinction, the world's easy meat. And got too good at it. And we drove most of the world's easy meat to extinction. Our ancestors did. And that was a long process. Over a million years. May have begun over 2 million years ago when they started wiping out giant tortoises. But a million and a half years ago, there was a mid-Pleistocene extinction, which was probably the result of Homo erectus becoming an apex predator there in Africa, which also went into Asia. And then, 60,000 years ago or something, behaviorally modern humans conquered Earth and thereby drove almost all of the world's big animals to extinction. It happened over about 50,000 years. That's what happened. They think they during that conquest, they think about how scientists have estimated about 1 billion large animals were killed by humanity. And the control of fire was happening during that. And so another key energy technology happened then. And then after, again, in this interglacial interval we live in, again, all the big easy meat's dead, etc. There were 1,000 times as many humans on Earth at the end of that conquest as began it. A warming Earth, higher carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, which enabled better plant growth, and then humans domesticated plants and animals. And that was, again, the foundation of the next epoch. And so the agrarian epoch. And then only a few centuries ago, humans began exploiting fossil fuels at a level that hadn't been done before. So the British English started exploiting coal, like no other civilization ever had. And that led to the Industrial Revolution. And so then oil and gas then became exploited. And so, and that's I call the fourth epoch, the industrial epoch, which is the epoch of energy-driven machines, which can outperform humans by quite a bit and increase the standard of living on Earth by orders of magnitude. In fact, and that led to actually to the biggest event in the human journey so far, which is the elimination of childhood death. And also in my studies, which has become clear to me. And again, these are areas, there's lively academic debate around these areas, but I've also seen that there's been too much ideology in science and this defense of humanity. So this denial that they killed off the big animals, and this denial that human violence goes all the way back. And so, yeah, human life was brutal, very brutal. Nasty. Hobbes won over Rousseau. Human life was nasty, brutish, and short. Half the children died, all from gorillas all the way up to a couple centuries ago. Half the children died. Yeah, which is obviously took a devastating toll on women, obviously. And again, the elimination of childhood death, that's, from half the children dying to none of the children dying. That's the biggest single outcome of industrialization, is that. Yeah, the biggest event in the human journey is that. And and during the human journey, the surplus energy, so energy beyond the calories that, fuel our bodies, that always increased with each epoch. And as the surplus energy increased, that was an increase in our wealth. And as we became wealthier, we had higher standards of living, and human societies became more humane. And this is something, when you get past the ideology that anthropologists have been laboring under for many years, which is dying out. And so, yeah, the evidence has now become essentially overwhelming that humans had a very violent past, very rough lives, particularly before industrialization. But again, hunter-gatherers were much poorer than farmers, this kind of thing. And with each epoch, with the surplus energy allowing for higher standards of living, human societies became more humane and less violent. Again, it's a progression. It's evident. Yeah, chimps are hundreds of times more violent than humans are, and so this is something that, again, this is a long process it took. But in the industrialized world, yeah, we're in the community where I live. I live next to Microsoft here, one of the most affluent places in the world, and the people in this community, violence against each other is just unheard of. The only time violence happens here is it's imported from the poor areas of the Seattle area as they're robbing the rich. Other than that, yeah, there's again, affluence, again, wealth. And so, when people are have a high standard of living, it's relatively abundant, and violence as a way to get what people want it's obsolete. It becomes obsolete. It's almost obsolete in industrial societies among the affluent, let's say. Again, poverty and crime and violence are all connected. They're all related. And so this is something, they're all close companions. And so again, it's been evident, particularly with industrialization, particularly with, where I live, in the most affluent place in the world, how those traits of humanity have fallen away. I mean, I live in a extremely multi-ethnic world. I mean, Microsoft has imported so many people from other nations. My whole neighborhood is, all different nations of the world are here, and there's no ethnic conflict or strife. It doesn't exist here, and so and again, it's about poverty. It's not about, it's all about survival. And once you get beyond survival, then those kind of behaviors they no longer make sense. Yeah, so that's one of the main trends that my work's about describing and presenting. And again, the evidence, I think, is very robust to support that. And people are free to, again, I encourage discussion, debates, fine. But I think the evidence, again, I've been persuaded by the evidence that of these realities. Again, everything I'm presenting here in this list are all, I think, very robustly supported ideas. I think they're right. Elites. So elites arrived with the first civilizations, and they always violently came to power. This is part of the game. We played so long. Global elites likely began their rise with Europe's conquest of the world. And when I say global elites, I'm not talking about Donald Trump and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and the Queen of the King of England. I'm not talking about them. They are not the global elites. The people who really run the world. And this is an area where so many people can't go there because they can't turn on the TV and see them. It's like, yeah, the global elites who run the world are very clandestine. They nobody knows who they are. There's a couple organizations named Mormon Financial Empire, aspects of the Jesuit order, but as far as the identities of the people who run the world, it's not publicly available information. And this is the area of it starts getting into conspiratorial stuff, but it's just the reality. And this is a reality that I learned the hard way. So did my fellow travelers when we did things that the global elites threatened as threatening their interests. Free energy. It would end the elite ball game on Earth. And so we learned the hard way about these global elites and what they do. Although mostly you meet their minions. So you're not meeting Mr. Big, you're meeting their henchmen and stuff. And I had too much of that experience for one lifetime. But the Industrial Revolution was about energy-powered machines. They not only replaced human and draft animal labor, but performed feats far beyond what organisms could achieve. The agrarian civilizations could never send a hay-powered rocket to the moon, could they? And so there's all sorts of emergent properties of these epochs that were not evident in the prior ones. So energy powered machines is what the Industrial Revolution is all about. With the key on energy. Yeah, so there's a lot of, in my opinion, deluded academics and scientists who argue that energy didn't matter for the Industrial Revolution, this kind of stuff, which is, boggles my mind that these kind of arguments are being made. But hey, people can argue whatever they want, no matter how disconnected from reality it might be. Adam Smith. So Adam Smith, Mr. Wealth of Nations, he wrote in his Wealth of Nations, actually, capitalist suppression. In fact, back then it was mercantilist, but same stuff. And so, but basically, commercial interests would suppress innovations, would suppress their competition. Wiping out the competition is the essence of capitalism. And part of the propaganda of capitalism has got free markets and stuff. And that's a joke. There are no free markets. Again, this is part of the brainwashing into free markets and stuff when they really don't exist. And suppressing technological advances on behalf of vested interests is standard capitalist practice, which I've lived through repeatedly. And when I eventually traded notes with fellow travelers, etc., this is normal. It's understandable. Yeah, so big vested interests aren't going to allow some new technology to just wipe their industry out, wipe the racket out. So they're all very vigilant in protecting their rackets. And there's a handful, 7 global rackets that the world economy that dominate the world economy, and they're all interlinked at the top with global elite. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Well, it's reality, and this is something that I learned the hard way, as my fellow travelers have. And I'm not too set on that. How to say it? People want to be skeptical about that. They can, except they don't have any experience in these areas. And if you have any experience, you can be far less skeptical of that reality. And for me, what's important is the technologies that have been suppressed and what the potential is. That's what's important to me. It's not about guessing who they are or all that kind of stuff. And again, the exotic technologies such as free energy and anti-gravity have been demonstrated to people close to me, and all independent attempts to develop them have been wiped out. bought out, wiped out. Again, they spent $250 billion buying stuff out. There's a lot of dead inventors and stuff. And I estimated a year or two ago that there have probably been about 100,000, some number like that, exotic, or how to say, disruptive technology efforts that have been thwarted, some number like that. And it's a pretty big number that has been thwarted over the years, and with various levels of attention and suppression. Again, in my opinion, the suppression activities are relatively mild for the scale of the issue because humanity basically does most of their work for them, which is something I also learned the hard way. And it comes back to very few people on Earth have an awareness that extends much past their immediate self-interest. And this again, these are my greatest lessons I learned in my lifetime, in my adventures, and it's understandable. So in a world of scarcity and fear, everybody's just trying to survive, and so it really encourages. The world of scarcity and fear encourages people to be egocentric, encourages people to all just focus on their self-interest to the exclusion of everything else. That's what a world of scarcity and fear encourages, and the globalists know this, and they know that keeping people in scarcity and fear keeps their position of running the planet safe. This is this is a game they play, and all societies have been brainwashed to one extent or the other. And in fact, the freer the society, the more brainwashed it is. Yeah, the United States, the freest society in the world, we're the most brainwashed. But the way the brainwashing works, again, it's the most sophisticated brainwashing in the world because it doesn't look like brainwashing. It looks like education. It looks like the news. And so this is something, and again, it took a lot of effort to eventually understand all that. And again, back to experience. Yeah, if I hadn't had my radicalizing experiences pursuing disruptive energy technologies, I would have not learned these lessons myself. Yeah, so all politicians and all elites in the public eye are subservient. They're downstream from the global elites. That's just how it is. Yeah, so Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Donald Trump really are not running the show. Not on this planet. And the sequester technology. So I've written about this a lot, discussed it. So when my friend saw in his underground technology show where they showed him anti-gravity free energy and a host of technologies that blew his mind. Free energy technology itself, and that's the biggest one. So again, back to the comprehensive perspective, you understand energy is it. Energy runs the show, is the show. Free energy technology is technically not that difficult to produce. It isn't, but it can't be produced by a lone inventor in his garage, not for public consumption. And these lone inventors out there are all incredibly vulnerable to organized suppression. And again, the surveillance capabilities of the global leader are second to none. And so there's no way that anybody's going to be able to sneak past them, or secretly develop their technologies, etc. None of that will work. So it has to be done in the light of day. And this is a part of the problem. But it's the only path to success that I see. So lone inventors don't have a chance of really bringing free energy to the world. And the problem is that almost all of humanity, when the topic comes up of free energy and these exotic technologies, people kind of like to see it on TV shows when it's fictional, but the idea of it actually being real, it frightens people. Denial and fear are the two primary reactions. If people ever get beyond ignorance, the denial and fear are the predominant reactions that people have when this subject's even approached. I'm talking 99.something% of humanity. They just react with denial and fear, dismiss it, just kind of afraid of it. Always kind of it'll blow the world up. All these things, all this fear mongering. And I came to find out that's normal. So, in fact, as I developed my epical framework, I understood that nobody ever saw the next epic coming. In fact, this is the first time we've ever seen the next epic. Someone like me has seen the next epic coming before it got here. All the other epics, they were already there. They already arrived. They're already in the rearview mirror before people really understood what had happened. This is the first time that is actually we're watching it, before it really happens. Even though, again, I said the technology is older than I am, but as far as it becoming publicly available and publicly understood, that has not happened. And the general public will only begin that denial and fear, etc. That's what they're going to be. I've stopped. I just stopped. You're not going to beat that one. That 99% of the population is in denial and fear, and they're going to be in denial and fear until those technologies are delivered into their lives, and only then will they begin to understand. Again, just like the other epics. So nobody saw the next epic coming until it was here. And the same thing will be this way. So people, the vast majority of humanity is not going to begin to understand until these technologies are delivered in their lives and they use them, and then it'll start to sink in. But my effort is people who can get there without having free energy delivered to their doorstep, and that's back to a comprehensive perspective, back to awakening, back to caring, these kind of things. I said, I didn't get an underground technology, but I know this stuff's real. And so, and I'm looking for people who can cross that chasm to get to just imagining the coming epic before it arrives as a way to help us achieve it. Yeah, so my effort's going to be based around an idea of a world of abundance and the technology to make it happen, which, again, is older than I am. And they can even just gives us it's possible. That would be perhaps enough. But yeah. So anyway, it's part of the challenge. And again, the delivery of those technologies. So free energy and anti-gravity technology, and they can have the rest of it, but just give me free energy and anti-gravity, and we'll have what I call the fifth epic of the human journey. And the world will end as we know it. And scarcity will end. In fact, they call it post-scarcity societies today. So there's actually concepts out there that is sort of like are anticipating this. In fact, particularly AI right now, you see people like Elon Musk, et cetera, talk about abundance. Well, without energy abundance, there won't be true abundance. Energy abundance is required for there to be real abundance. And once scarcity ends, so will poverty, so will crime, so will warfare. And with the free energy technology, also environmental destruction will go with it. So heaven on earth. And I think we will see a new kind of human. So children will be raised in abundance and love instead of scarcity and fear. This will be a universal. Yeah, no child will ever be raised in adversity again. And so I think, and being raised in adversity actually damages our brains. And so I think you will see a new kind of human in what I call the fifth epic. And so that's the basic outline of the comprehensive perspective that I'm here to help people achieve. That's what my work's all about. It's finding the people who can understand what I just discussed and understand it, but it also just embrace it to get it, to understand how the world works and understand what's possible and understand what's right around the corner. If enough of those disillusioned idealists can get together and make it happen. If not my effort, then another. But I call it the love and enlightenment path. And so I just think that's it's the only path I'm interested in, and maybe the only one that'll work. And again, what I just discussed is open. If people want to debate it, that's fine. But honest, informed debate. And not troll activity and not knee-jerk denial, all the rest of that stuff. It's the thing where, and again, I have presented nothing that I am not highly confident is true. Yeah, this is the truth as I know it. And I never would have learned it all unless I had my adventures. That was critical step. And yeah, so most of the wild conspiratorial yarns that are spun out there, I'm not into that stuff, And so even though a lot of the wildest conspiracy theories are actually true to a large extent. And so this is part of the paradox of this. But Yeah, but the tabloid conspiracist crowd, it's paranoid. It's again, it doesn't have the proper orientation, and so yeah, again, a comprehensive perspective does not get all conspiratorial, and it doesn't get all structural either. So materialist structural, which the left tends to do, and the conspiracist right, those are both lopsided frameworks in my experience. I mean, they both have aspects of the tree. It's kind of like the blind man and the elephant, you know. So the left's over here, you know, on a trunk, and the right's over here holding the tail. But they can't see the big picture with those frameworks, and they have to integrate them again back to a comprehensive perspective. And so, yeah, yes, structural constraints are real. Conspiracies are real, definitely. And again, my life was ruined by the world's biggest conspiracy. So yeah, I'm not against the idea of conspiracies. I know that Jack Kennedy was killed in a conspiracy, you know, but also we landed people on the moon. The moon landings really happened, which, and I've written about this a lot, and in future posts I will discuss all those topics. Um, yeah, so a comprehensive perspective takes it all and integrates it all, which is not easy. But again, if people have a whole heart and they've been awakened, I think they can get there. I think people can get to the place where I think is necessary to form the ballast for a successful effort. This has been the problem. Yeah, efforts tend to just fragment in a million directions as people are pursuing their self-interest and their delusions and all this kind of stuff. And so this is part of the problem. And this is why we don't have free energy today. Yeah, the organized suppression is just an aspect of it. And one of my favorite sayings on this, my invention is that all these organized suppression and global racketeering, et cetera, is 1% conspiracy and 99% complicity. Yeah, we all play along, and that's how it's successful. The conspiracy part is a really small piece of it. It's the rest of us. Like back to the 99% of people who deny or are afraid of the idea of free energy. So this is all part of the problem. Um, and again, back to the people who develop truly comprehensive perspective. Truly comprehensive perspective also jettison the dominant ideologies back to capitalism, nationalism, organized religion, materialism, rationalism, scientism, all these isms that are scarcity based, that create in groups at the expense of out groups. And the people that I seek, if you have love in your heart, you're not going to do that in-group stuff, you know, to create an out-group. And usually to justify ill treatment of the out-group, often violently. And again, this is deeply baked into humans. This is what social animals do. It's about survival. So I get it. But survival consciousness is not going to get us where we need. Survival consciousness is not going to help an effort like mine. You need people I'm seeking have to get beyond survival consciousness, about self-seeking and self-interest and survival. This is all it's a human way, but it's very counterproductive for an effort if an effort's going to be able to overcome the organized suppression and humanity's inertia. And again, so I advocate the love and enlightenment approach, which only one I'm interested in, and maybe the only one that will work. But if 5,000 people can achieve that perspective and participate in a global conversation, real people, again, it's a real, it'll start as a virtual community, may become a real one eventually. I've called it the choir. Again, they're talking. It's a global conversation about these ideas. If that happens, if 5,000 people can attain that, it's over. The rest is easy. In fact, I saw my former partner Dennis last year, and I mentioned this, and I said, if I get 5,000 people to do this, to sing the song of abundance, it's all over. And Dennis agreed. And so, yeah, but that's less than 1 in a million in today's humanity. So can I find 1 in a million? And that's it. If I can find 1 in a million, we're there. If somebody else can find 1 in a million, but I like the odds. So it's a thing of I think the odds are better than 1 in a million. That the people out there that I'm looking for, yeah, it's better than 1 in a million. The problem is finding them. And the problem is me becoming visible enough. And yeah, so this is. But I think that if that conversation develops, then it's going to become louder, more higher profile, and it'll attract those kind of people. Again, it's tough to get to that comprehensive perspective is like walking the razor's edge. And I've just seen people disappear into rabbit holes of nowhere all the time. You know, it's not easy. It is not easy to get and hold that comprehensive perspective. Yeah, it's too tempting to too tempting to seek easy ways out and this kind of stuff. Anyway, that's my plan. And will work if I could find if I could find those 5,000 people, it would work. I have no doubt about that. It would work. Finding the 5,000 and getting them trained up is going to be the hard part. But I've created the curriculum that I think is worthy of their study, and again, I'm here to discuss it. Man, that's what. Yeah, it's I'm here to help people understand these things, and so that's and again, if people, I don't think it's that hard to understand. But back to care and awaken. That has to have happened because then they're ready. They're ready to learn. Yeah, until they've achieved those states, they're not going to be ready to learn. And so this is something, and again, I don't, this is not conceptually really difficult. It really isn't. What makes it difficult for people is just flies in the face of what they know. But what they know isn't from experience, it's because they're brainwashed into various beliefs, etc. It's not through their own experience. And so mine is based on experience. And science ideally is a path of experience to pursue the truth. Ideally, that's what it is. And again, I write about a lot about the corruption of science. There's a lot of corruption in science, definitely. Biomedical science in particular. I just before I started this, I heard about a couple other people who were vaccine injured by the COVID vaccine, who swore by the COVID vaccine. Husband and wife team, and they went and got their vaccine. The next morning, both of them are crippled. You know, it's like, I hear this stuff, and I don't even try to find this stuff over and over. Anyway, so yeah, medical establishment's a racket, and Western medicine's a big racket, and I wrote about this at great length. And so somebody who's been crippled by the COVID vaccine, they both got it. They swore by it, and now they realize that that's what injured them. And so that's a way to awaken. It is. That's a one way to awaken, except you end up sacrificing your health. And so, yeah, awakening can be very difficult, very traumatic. In fact, few people ever wake up in a lifetime, wake up beyond the indoctrination and conditioning. Very few people do. And it's social animals. It's understandable. And that's why probably it's going to be mostly people from industrialized nations because they're not at the brink of survival. So they can, raise that awareness to, again, love and enlightenment level that can disillusion idealists, as I discussed. So anyway, so those are the people that are going to make it happen. Although one of my best pupils lives in the Philippines. So anyway, it doesn't have to be all white people. That's for sure. And so anyway, but I like the odds. 1 in a million, if I find 1 in a million, it's all over. Heaven on earth. How about that? And so anyways, that's the brief version of what I'm doing. And one way to do it. And I'm always ready for the Muppet movie ending where all of a sudden just somebody shows up with, ta-da, we've done it. But my experience is that's never happened before. I'd love to see it happen, but I have to do something that I think has a realistic chance of success rather than, some wishing on a star kind of approach. So anyway, so that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching.